morning, everybody. It's a bit formidable, actually, to sort of be here. I'm a humble 2-2, if anybody knows what a 2-2 is, from Cambridge. Graduated in '66 with economics with a 2-2, which we nicknamed a Desmond. Desmond 2-2, you'll get there eventually. So to be surrounded by all these formidable academics, the president of Princeton, all these formidable Damon Runyon fellows, Lydia, Sterling, Gregory. I mean, it's a formidable time. There's one sort of recompense. I did graduate, like 90% of the Harvard Business School graduating class in the top third of the class. You'll get there eventually on that one as well. Anyway, a big thank you to Steve for, I was going to stand up and say, another fine mess you got me into, Ollie. But a big thank you for Steve for introducing me to the Damon Runyon organization. Badly branded, Steve, I think. Most of the people who I approached on this said, is it some form of literary society? There was Dr. Tillman referred to Charles Dickens, so I suppose it was in the tradition of that. But clearly Damon Runyon has come a long way. We've got to do something about the branding, Steve, but clearly Damon Runyon has come a long time. Tom Fahey was telling me about the history with Walter Winchell. Damon Runyon died because of throat cancer, and Walter Winchell launched this appeal for dimes and nickels, and obviously it's come a long way, and I'm absolutely delighted that we've managed to raise $1.4 million or close to it today in light of the exceptional work that Damon Runyon does. I'd just like to say thank you to Kevin McCormack and the people at WPP who have been involved in this. I've done very little for this. I just turn up and get some of the glory, and I really don't deserve it. But I just want to say one or two things about this insidious disease, cancer, and my personal brushes with it. But a big thank you to Kevin, and a big thank you to all the people at WPP, and of course the people at Damon Runyon. And I must mention all my colleagues at Burson Marsteller, at Sudler and Hennessy, at Ogilvy Common Health, not wealth, but it is wealthy actually, but Common Health. Group M and its constituent agencies, at Gray, at Conan Wolfe, at Hill and Knowlton Strategies, at 24/7 Media, at Wunderman, at Ogilvy, and at JWT and Y&R, and of course the partners of WPP like Davis and Gilbert, CBRE and Goldman Sachs, and last but not least, the Bloomberg Foundation, Mayor Bloomberg, and I'm honored to be a trustee of Mike Bloomberg's foundation. So a big thank you to all of them. Now, a big congratulations also, and a thank you to Alan and Lorraine and Dr. Tillman and Shirley for emphasizing, particularly Dr. Tillman, for emphasizing the importance of investing in youth and scientific youth, and the sort of issues that we're seeing currently, not just in the medical sector, but other sectors because of the impact of the probably ill-advised sequester, which was put in place in June of 2011, if my memory serves me right. We were in Washington at the time, and of course was never believed actually to be operative. It was a compromise that was done, a political compromise done at the time, with the thought that it would never happen, but of course it is happening and having serious effects. Now, from a personal point of view, I can't talk about, obviously, about science and its impact. I mean, I am impressed that we have scientists that can explain in words of one syllable to somebody who has a 2-2 what they're doing and be comprehensible. But I've had three brushes, well, I've had more than three brushes, but three sort of very deep and important personal brushes with cancer, this insidious and vicious disease. The first goes back to my grandmother, actually, in the 50s. She was suffering from breast cancer. She died of breast cancer. And interestingly, she was from an Orthodox Jewish family, and at that time, Orthodox Jewish women would not go to the doctor to be personally examined. It was taboo for another man to see them naked. And so she didn't go to the doctor and died of cancer as a result. So that was the first brush. The second brush was what Tom Fahey mentioned. In 1989, in fact, to this day, I don't know whether my father knew earlier that he had cancer, but he wrote to me in 1988, in March of 88, in a letter which I opened after he died, saying that in January of 1988, he noticed a change in his physical condition, but he only told me about his illness in January of 89. So I will never know whether he miswrote the letter, got the wrong date because he was emotional when he wrote it, or whether he noticed a change in his condition 12 months before he told me about it. But I mentioned to Dr. Tillman one of the problems that we have in the UK, and the reason that I came into touch with Dr. Fahey and Sloan Kettering. In the UK, we spend about 7% of our GDP, I think, still on healthcare. In America, I think you still spend, or we still spend, if I can associate myself with you, 13%. And your economy, or our economy in the US, is 5 or 6 times bigger, 16 trillion versus about 2.5 trillion for the UK. So America invests far more. We may argue about whether the outcomes are efficient or not, but you invest and spend far more than the humble UK. And in 1989, my father was well treated at a hospital in the UK, but I didn't feel well enough treated. And I remember the specialist who looked after him was always away at conferences, and I got very frustrated. I rang up one day, and he was away at a conference in Greece, actually, so it happened, and I said, look, I've had enough of this. And I rang Karl Spielvogel. You remember one of the principals of Bacher and Spielvogel, and he introduced me to the Sloan Kettering, so I have a debt of gratitude to Karl and to Dr. Fahey. And I brought my father across. It was in the days of Concorde. We got on Concorde. We arrived, I think, in New York at 10:30 in the morning. We went straight down to the Sloan Kettering. My father had an immediate, with my mother, immediate hotspot analysis. And that afternoon, the prognosis was not good. Dr. Fahey gave us, I remember we went back to the hospital, gave us an immediate breakdown of what was happening. So I was forever grateful. My father died in July of '89. About 6 months, as I say, after he indicated he was feeling not too well. But I always had this debt of gratitude to Dr. Fahey, and he's been absolutely wonderful, because every time we've had a situation in WPP that I was aware of, we had a person in WPP that had a problem, I would just ring him or send him an email and say, could you look into this? Could you help the people, the family, to diagnose, often a second or third opinion of the disease? And he's been instantly responsive. So I have an undying debt of gratitude to him and the Sloan for not just what he did for my father, but what he does on a continuous basis, and the Sloan does on a continuous basis for WPP. Also, I was reminded when Steve was talking about the story when I first met him. I met him actually through Phil Reese and his wife Gloria Reese. Phil was the senior partner in Davis & Gilbert, who, as I mentioned, have been a partner and a sponsor here today. And it was Phil and Gloria who introduced me to Steve, and we met in San Francisco, in a hotel in San Francisco. That's where I met him for the first time, and I remember it very well. And Phil also, who next to my father was probably my closest confidant. Phil died of cancer in the early part of the new millennium, sadly. And so that was my third brush with this insidious disease. So I am highly motivated from a personal point of view and a family point of view in trying to come to terms and eradicate it. So I'm very proud of Lydia and the Jack Sorrell Fellowship, and I want to thank finally, again, Steve particularly, and Tom Fahey for encouraging me yet again to get involved with this fight. And hopefully, Lydia, no pressure. You know, this is exactly the same as a video that I would be asked to do in a pitch for a client. You know, I would always finish it by saying, no pressure, boys and girls, just make sure you win. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming so early in the morning, and thank you very much to the Damon Runyon Group Society for this morning and this event. Thank you very much.